Hey, what's up? My name's Alea. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be recommending 15 books that I think are perfect for the October cozy autumnal season. So I've split this list into 5 categories. So the first category is cozy creatures. So these are books that feature witches and ghosts and demons and things like that, but they're not too spooky. So if you're into like middle grade horror or middle grade spooky books, this is the category for you. So the first book I wanted to recommend is called The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding by Alexandra Bracken. So this is a spooky middle grade book about a young boy named Prosper, and he is possessed by a demon. And there's a lot of people who are after him, including most of his family members, and they're trying to kill him because this demon is inside of him. And the demon is related to his family's past because one of his ancestors made a deal with the devil, and so now he's possessed by this demon, and if the family doesn't kill the demon, then bad things will happen to them. So Prosper is on a mission to get this demon out of him, and he also has a young friend who's a witch who's really sweet, and this, I think, is the perfect, most optimal book for fall because the beginning of the book opens with a fall festival and the kids are going apple bobbing and there's a fall parade that's happening and there's fall leaves everywhere and pumpkins, and it really gives you that autumnal vibe, which I really love. So this is one that I highly recommend if you like middle grade or you like fantasy and like demons and witches and paranormal stuff like that. Next, we have Lockwood & Co. by Jonathan Stroud, which you guys know is my favorite book series of all time. So this series follows this young girl named Lucy, and she is able to see ghosts, and she ends up becoming part of this organization called Lockwood & Co. with this young guy named Lockwood and a few other characters, and basically they are ghost hunters. So this book is set in an alternate version of London where ghosts are running rampant and the ghosts will kill you if they touch you. And there's lots of houses that are becoming haunted, and a lot of adults are dying from ghost touch because they can't see the ghosts, only the children can see them. So in this world, all of the children are basically ghostbusters, and they run around trying to stop these ghosts, and they're trying to catch them and figure out why these ghosts are haunting these houses and why their spirits haven't moved on and that sort of thing. And it's really good. There's also a talking skull in this. It's really funny. It's very witty. It's very cozy, but it is a little bit on the spookier side. Some of the ghosts are actually really scary. Like there is a ghost of a serial killer in one of the books that is actually so terrifying. But this first book, The Screaming Staircase, is one of my favorites of all time. Now, moving on to the second category. Category 2 is called Freaky Fungi. So these are books that feature mushroom horror, which is one of my favorites, and it has lots of spooky fungi, spooky mushrooms, spooky haunted houses, and that sort of thing. So the first book for this category is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. So this is one that I read recently for Summerween and really enjoyed. This follows a character who is actually non-binary, and they are called to this house by their friend named Madeline, who is dying, and so our main character goes to this house and realizes that things are not as they seem. Madeline and her brother are dying of some sort of mysterious illness. There's a really creepy like lake outside of the house that glows at night, and there's these hares that live near the house, and the hares are acting really strange. They move in a really odd way. They kind of crawl across the ground, and our main character is trying to figure out what is going on with this house, and is there some kind of a way to save the siblings? Is there a curse that's happening? And so we go on this journey that it does in fact involve creepy mushrooms that also grow outside the house, and we follow this really interesting cast of characters as they try to figure out what's going on, and I really enjoyed this. And I think the mushroom horror in this was done really well. I thought it was unique, I thought it was interesting, it was super creepy, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Next, we have Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, which is also one of my favorite horror books of all time. So this follows a lady named Noemi, and she gets a letter, a really cryptic letter in fact, from her cousin who has recently gotten married and moved away to live with her husband in his family's manor house in Mexico. And she claims that her husband is crazy and his family is crazy and she's not doing well and she's having these creepy visions, and she's asking her cousin for help. So her cousin Noemi goes down there and is like, okay, I don't know what's going on here, like who are these people, what's going on with this house? They live in this really creepy old mansion that's kind of like falling apart, and her cousin is basically locked away in a room, and everybody says that she's just sick. And Wemi is like, I don't think that that's true. I think there's something else going on here. And then she starts having creepy visions, and she finds these mushrooms that are in the family cemetery outside. And the husband is also really creepy, and there's also some talk of eugenics in here as well. It's dark, it's creepy, it's messed up, it's really interesting. If you're into haunted houses and creepy mushrooms and conversations about eugenics and colonialism, I think that you would really enjoy this one. Now, the next category that I have is called Gifted Students, because what would a fall book recommendations list be without a little bit of dark academia? Next is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. So this is a YA fantasy novel where we follow a girl named Elle who has powers and goes to a magical school. And in this world, this magic school is a place where kids are kind of shipped off to, and they're not allowed to leave. And in this school, there are monsters, and it's very cutthroat. The monsters basically run around and attack the kids, and the kids have to try and fight the monsters and learn how to control their magic and also kind of protect themselves from each other. There's a lot of alliances that form in here. Elle is a really, really badass main character, and she's very sassy and snarky, and I really enjoyed following her. She also kind of has a romance with this guy named Orion, who always seems like he's saving her, and he's kind of like the golden boy, and everybody kind of dislikes Elle because they think she kind of has this like dark magic, and Elle is like, my magic isn't bad, I'm just trying to learn how to control it. Don't come for me. I really, really enjoyed this one. I have yet to continue with the series, but I plan to do so very soon. So I think this is a really good one if you're looking for some dark academia with some fantasy elements that's also really badass. Next is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. So this is an adult novel about these two men named Victor and Eli who go to college together, and they're very ambitious. And in their senior year, they start working on a project about superheroes. And the back says, Victor and Eli started out as two brilliant, arrogant college kids who recognized the same sharpness and ambition in each other. In their senior year, a shared research interest in adrenaline, near-death experiences, and seemingly supernatural events reveals an intriguing possibility that under the right conditions, someone could develop an extraordinary ability. But when their thesis moves from the academic to the experimental, things go horribly wrong. So this is basically about two guys who turn into supervillains and hit each other's guts. They have powers, and they run into other people who have powers. One of the guys is trying to kill other people that he thinks have superpowers because he wants to be the only one. And the other guy is just getting out of prison, and they kind of have this feud going on. It's really interesting. It's also kind of dark. It's about academia. It's about power. It's about friendship. It's about friendship gone wrong. It's really interesting. There's also some like resurrection going on in here. I really, really enjoyed this. I thought it was very interesting. The chapters are also really short, and I think this is a perfect book to read in fall because half of it is set in the present and half of it is set 10 years ago when the two boys were in university. Very interesting. Highly recommend. Next, we have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, which is another dark academia, except this one is more paranormal, and we follow this girl who basically gets a chance to go to university because she has the ability to see ghosts. And at this university, there's lots of secret societies who are often doing various nefarious activities that attract ghosts, which is bad. And so this girl kind of gets hired to come to the university and be part of a secret society and kind of act as like a defender of the societies and keep away the ghosts because she can actually see them. And so she goes and she realizes that these secret societies aren't what they seem, and people start showing up dead on campus, and she's trying to get to the bottom of these murders while also kind of coming to terms with the fact that she can see ghosts and figuring out what that means for her. She's also kind of teaming up with a ghost to solve one of the murders, and this also has trigger warnings for sexual assault and rape and paranormal rape, if that's a thing. This is a very dark book, so know that going in, but I do think it is really interesting, and I really liked the paranormal aspects and the murder mystery aspects. I also thought the secret societies were interesting, even though I do think that they are dark and a little bit like peculiar. But overall, I really enjoyed this book. I do recommend it if you think that you're in a good headspace to read about some triggering topics. Also, there is some like drug use in here and trigger warnings for like death of a friend as well. But I do think that this is a really good, interesting novel, and the sequel is coming out in January, and it's called Hellbent. If that is interesting to you, it has a really creepy rabbit on the cover. I'm very excited for that as well. Now, the last category is haunted houses, and I only have one for this one because there's only one that I've read recently that I really enjoyed, but this is kind of a category for books that are dark and messed up and have haunted houses and demons and that sort of thing. So for this, I have The Me You Love in the Dark by Scotty Young and George Corona. So this has a really interesting art style that I really enjoy. It's about this woman who's an artist and she's really struggling with her art. And so she decides to go and rent this old abandoned mansion, and her real estate agent tells her, hey, just FYI, people say that this house is haunted. And she's like, oh, it's haunted? That sounds great. Let me just rent it. And so she stays there for a few months and realizes that there may in fact be an entity of sorts in this house, and that entity might not be what she thought it was originally. So basically, when she gets to this house, she is having a lot of artist block and she's having trouble painting, and she's a really famous painter, and so her agent is really on her about making some new art. And so she rolls up with all these canvases and she's unpacking, and she starts talking to the ghost just to try and be funny. And she's like, hey ghost, like, why don't you help me unpack and stuff? And then the ghost starts talking back to her, and it kind of goes from there, and she kind of forms a relationship with this entity that's in the house, and things go from there. She has to try and figure out, you know, how much of the inspiration is she getting from this demon? Is it, you know, is it her art? Is it really being controlled by this entity? She's trying to get back into her art, but also she's forced to stay in this house by this creepy demon thing that she doesn't even really know what it is. But anyways, it's wild, it's messed up, it's dark. I love the art style. I think it's beautiful. I think it has some really interesting things to say about art and making things and being a creative person, and I really enjoyed it. If you're into books with demons or creepy monsters or haunted houses or struggling artists, I would highly recommend this. So those are all the books that I have read that I want to recommend to you, but I also wanted to recommend some that are on my TBR as well, in case you are looking for some other options. So the next few ones are picks off my TBR that I think are perfect for spooky season. They're very autumnal. They also have paranormal creatures. We've got graphic novels, we got horror, we got all kinds of stuff. So let's get into that stack. So first up, I wanted to talk about The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I know I started this and got about 100 pages in like a year ago, and then was too busy with school to finish it. And now that I'm out of school, I really want to revisit this. We follow this lady named Addie LaRue who makes a deal with the devil on her wedding night because she doesn't want to get married, and so the devil says, fine, you don't want to get married? Cool. We'll just make sure that nobody remembers you. And so she ends up basically becoming immortal and nobody remembers her, and so she goes through life with everybody forgetting who she is right after she meets them. Nobody knows her name, she can't write, she can't leave a mark on the world, and the story kind of goes from there, and it's about her meeting a guy who remembers her, I think. And so we kind of get alternating timelines between when she was young in France, when she made the deal with the devil, and then in present day in New York. And that's all I really know. But in the beginning, I thought it was really interesting and autumnal, and the parts that are set in France are really like cozy fall vibes. So I'm recommending this one in case you want to check that out. So next up we have Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. So this is one that I was reading last October during Halloween, and I just got too busy and didn't have time to finish it because it's extremely long. But this is a really interesting book about a man named Gabriel de Leon who is a silver saint, and his job is to basically protect humanity from the vampires in this very long war that's been happening. And he's part of this brotherhood of silver saints who are really interesting because they're people who have been bit by vampires, but were originally human, and so they have certain powers like super strength. And it's about him and his life and the lost love that he had, and friendship and brotherhood, and the training he went through to become a silver saint, and his life of fighting vampires in this long war, and it's really, really interesting. It's dark, it's kind of messed up. The school that he goes to train to become a Silver Saint is very dark and also very religious, which is really interesting. There's a lot of French and religious influence in this book that I was not expecting but found really interesting to follow. And it's also about his family when he was a child and how he grew up and his relationship with his parents and his sister. And there's also really cool illustrations in here as well. Hopefully the sunlight's not blocking that too much. I thought this was a really cool book. It had really interesting vibes with all the vampires and the magic school and the war, and it was just really, really cool to see this magical world that J. Kristoff created. And I think this is a really perfect book for October spooky time because it's got vampires, it's got you know, bars and drinking and smoking and all that kind of stuff, but also a lot of magic and a lot of friendship and brotherhood and that kind of thing. So if you're into that, this is one that you might enjoy. Now, the last category in this video is graphic novels that are on my TBR. I've been finding a lot of really cool Halloween autumnal spooky graphic novels lately that I'm really interested in reading. So first up we have Took by Mary Downing Hahn, and this is one that I just recently picked up at the bookstore, and this is a ghost story about a witch, but it also has a creepy doll in the front, so not totally sure what the vibes are with this. But the back says, "They say that a ghost witch lives in the woods upon Brewster Hill. They say her companion, Bloody Bones, has a pig skull for a face and stands taller than man, his skeleton gleaming white in the moonlight. They say that the witch takes young girls, and no one ever sees them again." Spooky! I think this is going to be really cool and interesting. And I think the art style is also very, very cool and unique. And I'm interested to see what this is all about. So this is kind of what the art style looks like. Sorry about the sun. Another one I have to recommend is Beetle and the Hollow Bones. So this is one that's been on my physical TBR for a while, and it's about this 12-year-old girl who is part goblin and part witch, and she is trying to figure out how to control her magic. And she also has a friend named BG who is cursed to haunt a mall, and this also has a really cool art style. It's very autumnal and very beautiful. So I think this is one that would be absolutely perfect to read during Halloween. And my last recommendation is for a graphic novel that I don't own physically, but it's definitely on my list of ones to buy, and it's called Garlic and the Vampire. It looks really cute. It's giving like Over the Garden Wall vibes if you've seen that cartoon that's on Netflix, which I also think is perfect for Halloween. If you haven't watched that yet, you should go do so, because I just rewatched it and it's fantastic. But anyways, back to this. So Garlic and the Vampire is about this little character named Garlic who is in this village where a lot of other vegetables live, and the vegetables have heard that there is this vampire who's recently moved in to a castle nearby, and they're not sure if he's a threat or not, or if he's chill. And so they take a vote and they're like, okay, Garlic, it's your job to go to the vampire's house and meet him and see what his deal is, if he's cool or if he's gonna try and kill us. And so Garlic reluctantly goes to see the vampire, and that's all I really know. The sequel to this just came out called Garlic and the Witch, and that one looks really cute and autumnal as well. So those are ones that I also would recommend if you're looking for a cool graphic novel to read this October. So that is all the recommendations I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment what October books you think I would like, especially if you have any graphic novel recommendations. I would love to hear about those. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for clicking, thank you for caring, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!